Today we're going to upgrade our server. So our server does a lot of things here in the office, but its main function is backup. But one of the other things it does is it stores the videos and pictures from our IP cameras. Now that disk is only a 1 terabyte disk. We typically move the data from the IP disk to another disk for long-term storage, but we're adding new cameras soon, so we're going to go from 1080p to 4K cameras, and we're going to go from, we currently have 6 cameras, we're going to take that up to 8 4K cameras, but we're probably going to keep at least 4 of the 1080p cameras. So we're really going to increase the amount of storage capacity we need. So before a 1 terabyte drive, it would take us probably about 3 to 4 months to fill it up. And that's with, constant motion in several different places, doing sometimes hundreds of videos per camera per day. But the files were relatively small, 22 seconds like that, so it's been okay. But with the 4K cameras coming soon, we're going to need more storage capacity. So there are a few other things that we're going to be doing here in the office. For one, we're going to be making more videos like this one, hopefully even better. So that's also going to require more storage. So our server, when we're going to replace 2 1 terabyte drives with 18 terabyte drives. So that's going to bring the capacity of this server up to around 94, or it could be 96. I'm not quite sure. We've done several upgrades. You can subscribe to the channel, see some of the other videos we've done, and see why we've done several upgrades. So lost track of how much we have here. So I just wanted to show you what we're going to do, kind of a little bit of the process, why we're replacing the 2 drives we are. One I mentioned is a IP camera drive, and I explained that. The other one is an E drive. I call it the E drive because every computer that I work with, and I have my main computer, I have a backup computer, and I actually have a backup to the backup computer. Very seldom I ever need those, but I use a 1 terabyte drive to store most of the information that I work on daily, okay? And I use a program to back that up to the server and to a second drive on whatever computer I'm using. So that data is never more than a terabyte because I work with videos on different drives and stuff like that. This is just for basic work files for my website design business and some of the other things I do. So it's always been a thought that I had that, and I've done it before, where I can just take that drive out and pop it into another computer if I have to, and I can get back to work pretty quick. So that was the thought. Still a good thought, and I'll still be using that to some degree. But what I plan to do now is just drop in an 18 terabyte drive, and instead of backing up drive to drive, I'm just going to back up to a folder on the server, but I'll continue doing a backup drive to drive on another system. And I will also be doing a long-term storage backup on our backup server. So this is our main server. We have 12 drives in here, counting the SSD for the operating system. We've made a previous video where we're building a backup to the server. It's never going to run all the time, but it's going to fire up once in a while and back up some of the crucial files from the server. It won't back up everything. That's not what its purpose is going to be, but it's going to back up anything that we consider, crucial. So we're going to be making another video and we'll show you that, where we're going to drop a couple larger drives in there. Right now I believe there's about 5 or 6 drives in it. We're going to get it up to about 10 drives. They're going to be much smaller capacity because it's just for long-term storage and backup. So there you go, back up to the backup. So let's just get into this, and we're going to take a look again real quick at what we have here. So we have this Corsair LAN case. Really nice case, fantastic airflow, and that's why we chose it. So we're going to flip that over, and then I'm going to switch cameras, and you can take a look down inside with me. So there's the case. Let's get her all squared up there so you can have a look. Few things I like about this LAN case, and one of them is this. They're very easy to work on. And so there, as you can see, is one of the reasons why we chose this case. So you wouldn't think that cable management is that important, but it's shocking how important it is. And you really start to notice when you have a server with a lot of drives in it. Now, this one, because it's so open, has been pretty good. But with the number of drives up here in the front, let me see if I can get that up just a bit so you can see everything. There you go. So we have 6 drives here. We have a SSD mounted. It's hard to see down in there on the bottom of this cage. And then we have 5 drives over here. This top drive is a 1 terabyte slim drive, and the reason that is because this replacement for the 5 1/4 bays only fits 4 full-size drives, so the 5th drive has to be a slim drive. So we won't be replacing that one unless we can find a smaller or a thinner 4 terabyte or something like that. So what we are going to do is we're going to replace the IP camera drive, as I mentioned before, and we have that labeled. It's right here. And we're going to be replacing the E drive that I mentioned, and that would be one of these drives right here. Yes, I believe it's this one. So it could be this one, but one of these drives. So we're going to replace those 2 drives with these 18 terabyte drives. Now, I was really impressed by these drives. We've already put 2 of them in, so you can see the packaging is really good, and I wanted to show you that. If you find something that you like, then stick with it. See, it's bubble wrapped, and then it has the really nice cases, and then you can see inside we have the Seagate 18 terabyte drives. So really well packaged. They really took care to get these to us as safely as possible. So that's what we're going to be replacing. So we're going to go from 1 terabyte to 18 terabytes on each of those. And that's about as big a difference as you can get. So you can see again here, they've got them packaged so nice. A little bit of information here. And then really well packaged. I really appreciate that, because we like to get our drives safe. So there you can see again, it's another 18 terabyte Seagate. Really good drives. So the first drive here, really simple. We don't need to get to the back or anything like that, but we do need to keep our drives in order as we replace them. So this one, the power, that's simple. Doesn't matter where they plug in, but when you're doing servers like this, you do want to make sure that your SATA ports don't get mixed up, because I have all of these drives mapped on several different systems here, and so if we get that confused and it changes the drives that are mapped, then yeah, that's just gonna cause a lot of confusion. So I just like to lay them out 1, 2, 3, so that way nothing is getting confused. So as you can see here, this is a pretty nice little simple system. You just pull out the screws on either side, and pull these off. So that's a really nice drive bay extender where you can replace your 5 1/4 drive bays with 3 1/2 inch drive bays, and gain a lot more space for your hard drives. So we're going to keep this 1 terabyte Seagate to the side. We've backed up the data off of this, but we want to keep the backup here too, so that we can make sure that we get all of that transferred to the new drive. So we're just going to open up these new drives. Start with this one, and we're going to get that mounted back in there, and then we're going to pop another label on it later, because we want to make sure that we know which drive this is. That way in the future, if we want to swap out any of the other drives, they all just have a little sticker on them. It's not very fancy, but it is very effective. So that way we know which drive is which when we're switching them out. And if we ever had any problems with any of the drives going down or something, it would just make it a lot easier, a lot faster to get in there and replace the offending drive, instead of having to go through everything and, oh, which one's this, which one's this. We'll just keep undoing them until we figure it out. That's not an effective way to do things. So it's that easy. So we've replaced the first one, and then we want to make sure that we get everything hooked back up in order. That's why I always like to set these in order, tuck them or whatever, so that we don't get that confused. And all these cables are managed by length, so they fit really nicely. As you can see, 1, 2, 3 cable managed. So there you go. We got one of the drives out. I won't bore you with how the other one works. It's cable managed on the back side, so all of these connect from the back side. And so we're just going to flip it over. We're going to pop that one drive out. And it would be this one, the E drive. And we're going to replace it. So you can see, not nearly as neat over here. I know. Not nearly as neat. But it is very effective. It does work. And there's no air going to get back over here to speak of anyway. So this time we don't have to worry. We're just going to do the one. So we're not worried if we're going to get them mixed up. So I'm just going to flip that back over. And this one's going to be a lot easier. So we're going to pull her out. Now, they had some of those inserts, like little pins in there. We pulled those out. and use screws instead, because the plastic had become brittle and they were breaking one by one. And yeah, so we figured it's a lot better just to pull them all out and drop some screws in there. One of the things we did, and you can see here, is we put just a little piece of foam tape in here, because the drives would just bind in a little bit when you screw them, and then it won't fit in the cage very well. The cage won't fit in very well, and of course that's no good. So yeah, so we found that if we just put a little bit of foam tape in there, we could avoid that problem. Everything locks in good. You don't have drives sliding out as you're trying to flip this to PC, which obviously these 18 terabyte drives are not cheap, so you do not want them flopping around. You don't want them popping out while you're doing that. So yeah, just a good idea. Go ahead and put your tiny bit of tape in there if you have the same problem, and you won't have that problem. Now we just got to make sure we get her all lined up good. We're going to get our screws back in there. You definitely don't want to put the screws back in over top of the motherboard, because you probably don't want anything metal bopping around inside of that motherboard. You could probably drop a screw in there 1,000 times and nothing would happen. Or you could do it one time, totally run your PC. So we're going to flip her back over. And we're going to hook it back up. And then I'm going to show you one more thing I always like to do when I'm doing this kind of work. And it's pretty simple, but I feel it's a good idea. And that's what you're seeing right now. I'm just going to go down through here and I'm going to check every one of them and make sure all of my connections are good. And then I'm just going to look at everything. You can see here the power adapters for a graphics card. We don't use a graphics card on this system that needs power, because yeah, why would you do that? You want a very low power graphics card. So we use I believe it's an NVIDIA Quadro 400, which is a very low power card, because we don't need it. We don't need a powerful graphics card. So there you go. That's got that. We're just going to put the case back on there nice and carefully. Side back on there. There we go. Let's flip it back over. I'm sure I've mentioned this in previous videos, but let's just go over that real quick. As you can see, NVIDIA Quadro 400, because there's no onboard graphics with this motherboard. Could be better to use a motherboard with onboard graphics. You could probably lower your power usage a little bit. We already had this motherboard, and so we just went with that. We like the fact that it has an second X16 slot, because we have a SATA card in there, to hold extra graphics cards. We also have a SATA card up here for the extra SATA. So we have 16 gigabytes of RAM. We're using a AMD Phenom 955 processor. We probably could use a lower power processor, but again, we had most of the parts for this system. We're using a Thermaltake 80 plus power supply. As I said, we have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 drives in here. In the front of the case up here, we have 3 large fans. We have 2 fans on top. We have 1 fan on the bottom. And we have another fan over here on the back. So we've got a total of 7 fans in the system, and it keeps the system cool. One of the main reasons it keeps the system cool is because we're pulling fan air into the front, all the entire length of the front, and then we're blowing it out the top and the back. We're also pulling in from the bottom. So we got 4 coming in, 3 going out. I know it's not perfect, but that's what we're doing, and it seems to work really good. So there you go. It's a pretty cheap system. The main cost of this system is in the hard drives. The rest of the system is very economical. So highly recommended. Get a server for your office. You can start small. This server has grown over time. It'll continue to grow. We'll swap out more of the 4 terabyte drives, and I believe we have 4 terabytes, 8 terabytes, and 18 terabytes. So we'll swap out some of the smaller drives again in the future as we need more capacity, until we have 10, 18 terabyte drives and 1 thinner 1 terabyte drive. So we've got a lot of room. We can almost double from our 90-ish, 90 plus terabytes. If we swap everything out, we'll get it up to 181 terabytes. So pretty impressive in my view, and we should be good with this server for years to come. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel, follow us, share it. Thanks for watching.